Namaste and welcome to the Healing Mirror podcast. My name is Soraya Saraswati, and here I'm offering discussions, global satsangs and interviews with spiritual teachers, philanthropists and awakened and inspirational humans. At a time like this, which has really not occurred in any of our lifetimes before, for some it can be very intense. For some it can stir the pot. The mind doesn't like to be limited. The body doesn't like to be limited. Remembering that the mind and the body belong to the separate self. And the separate self, who likes to think it's in control, who likes to think it's free, doesn't like any form of limitation. And this is why a little child rebels, a teenager rebels. There's something appealing to the mind about rebellion, about breaking the rules. And we can actually see this. I was contemplating about the virus and America at the moment, and that people were actually rushing in to buy guns, and that others are ignoring the asking to isolate. America, land of the free, the last, frontier, and that individual's separate egoic self are wanting to be in control of their of the separate individual self's life, to be the one that's calling the shots, not to be told what to do. And some of you may feel a little bit of this arising. It might be bringing up some fear, it may be bringing up some agitation, and for others it may not be an issue at all. But it's interesting when we expand into consciousness. If your patterns are playing out strongly at that time, they will want to bring you back into the separate self, back into the body-mind. And the body-mind will want to say, no, I'm feeling this, or I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or will have a drawing and a pulling away from what we know is the truth, ourselves as the one consciousness, the one expanded experience of limitless aliveness. So I'm wondering how some of you have been feeling, and Calliope, your hand is still up. Would you like to speak, or would you like me to lower it? Hold on. Now you can
yes,
speak.
to lower it, please. Yes.
Yeah. I didn't think you were ready to speak yet. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to you guys to see if you have a report, maybe something you've experienced this week, noticed that's drawn you away from that experience of just being with the moment as it is. Perhaps there's been some resistance to presence coming up there. And then we can have a little look at that. So anyone wants to put their hand up now, they can. If you don't know how to put your hand up, then just say something in the chat or raise your hand. I can see everyone except Jessica. Okay, Girish, just lower your hand and unmute you. Go ahead, Girish.
I find that this situation with the virus, when I look at my choices in life currently, it's kind of exactly where I want to be. You know, I was heading this way, staying local, doing my own thing, mainly from home, and connecting with a few people, and spending more time with my music and being and garden and all of that sort of thing. So on a personal level, I feel quite content and happy with where I am. But there is a niggling thing for me in relation to, when the first kind of thing about the virus came up, my my gut reaction, my gut feeling was all about conspiracy. And, this is all about the world order doing their thing. And I still feel, that there is some kind of sinister plot here. And it's about setting a future police state. I wouldn't be surprised if this sets a precedence to vaccinate everyone on the planet and chip all of us so that we can be tracked. All these sort of things are coming to mind for me. And really, I don't know. I really don't know. That's the answer.
It's interesting, Girish. Let me just stop you there for a moment, because there's a lot of these things going around. And of course, we receive them as well. And some of them are quite feasible. But what we have to keep coming back to is, what is true now? Is this true right now? Well, we could say two things to that. We could say, I don't know, or no. So if it's not true for us now, then if we start believing in something which at the moment may or may not be true, but then that puts an aspect of the separate self into suffering. Do you understand that?
No, not really.
Well, if that was true, that there was going to be perhaps aiming towards a police state or immunizing everyone or, chipping us all, how does that make you feel?
Uncomfortable.
So that creates discomfort without any truth to it at this point. It comes back to being with what is now the truth as we're experiencing it. Now, there's an experience of that moving through, but if the mind then jumps on that, that's actually creating incredible anxiety for many people. And that anxiety is arising out of what if, not what is. And it will be very interesting to observe what happens over the next year. I agree. It will be a very interesting unfolding, and there are many things that could be happening or behind this or whatever, but we don't know. So if we, and that is playing out in a way that we absolutely have no control over. So the best thing we can do for global consciousness, for one consciousness, for, you know, if we are to remain as one, as consciousness itself, rather than acting from the separate individual egoic self, then to hold that sense of peace, to hold that sense of absolute presence in the moment, then we're feeding peace. We're adding peace to global consciousness. Was that going anywhere else, mentioning that, Girish?
Not really. I think I'm at a place of not knowing, and I can choose to stay with my peace. You know, it's not not difficult to do that, really.
Great, yeah.
Thank you.
But it's interesting to see these things that are passing through, and there are so many different conspiracy theories popping up on the internet, and you know, some of those may or may not have partial truths in them, but for the moment, for what we know, it's not a reality. So it's better not to focus on that, or we're actually growing it. We're seeding it in our own minds. So that was a really good point, very good point, because that's something I think most minds, particularly intelligent ones, you know, when we read things like that, it's these conspiracy theories, it's very easy for us to grow those in our mind, but to realize that we're then seeding them for the planet, that we're actually giving them energy, and we don't want to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, I'll just lower your hand and unmute you. Go ahead, Sarah. Oh, hold on, you're not unmute. Right.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say this has really sort of what Girish was saying has been, I've been really sitting with this because of being a bit more still than other people have been in the last couple of weeks. I have so many, what I've observed is that I get bombarded. I get people, you know, well-meaning people sending me all this stuff about this is the latest report on this, and this is, you know, this is what the universe is calling us to do, and this is this, and you know, and the latest scientific evidence says this, that, and the other, and of course so much of it is conflicting. And what I realized is that people are none of us know, and people are really uncomfortable with not knowing. And so there seems to be, for some people, this sense of just, if I just know the truth of what's happening, then I'll feel comfortable, and I'll feel in control of my world again, and everything will be fine. And of course I too have, you know, have that sense as well. And so my practice has been about really sitting with with not knowing and embracing not knowing, because then suddenly what happened for me was that it just opened up into that field of all possibilities. Everything is possible, and anything is possible, and any outcome from this is possible. We just we can't know that. And so being is, it's almost delicious to sit in this moment, because there's just something really beautifully calming, and it feels to me, so if I absolutely sit in the moment, I feel cared about and nourished in a way that if I put myself into the future, or even into what's just happened, it suddenly the tensions and the differences start, and the divisions start to happen. So I just wanted to share that.
Absolutely, Sarah. That's a brilliant sharing, and it's so true, and it is absolutely delicious to put yourself into that sense of being. And if that's one thing that we can all do every day at times when we remember to just stop, and whether you're sitting or standing or walking, it doesn't matter, but just to expand out from the body mind, which is by nature limited, into that limitless field of consciousness and awareness. And then the thoughts, like little bubbles coming up from the depths of the ocean, they may still be coming up and they may still be popping, but they will be absolutely insignificant in the limitless expansion of being. They will just be a happening within that, without any power. So it's absolutely the best thing to do is we can't project into a future. In fact, the most powerful place to sit is right here, right now, in the present moment, not knowing. And to say I don't know is an incredibly powerful thing to do, because when we say I don't know, we open up to the limitless expansion of all possibilities. Yet when we follow a particular belief that such and such is happening, particularly when it's a conspiracy theory or something which is a doomsday theory, we're feeding that, we're growing that, we're adding fuel to that. And all it is a fantasy, because anything that's not true right now is a projection into the future, which is, by definition, fantasy. And anything from the past is now simply a story or a memory. Only our experience now is truth, and that experience can be contracted or expanded. If we find on a personal, separate self level that fears are coming up, acknowledge those. I'm not saying to push them away. That's something I would never advocate. It's not wise for us to deny what is. However, to put things into perspective is a powerful thing to do. So if there's a fear arising, and we can perhaps feel that in our gut or in our throat or in our chest, and we're noticing that that's happening, whether that's an anxiety born of some form of fear, perhaps it could be anger, it could be any emotion that's arising, to recognize that that's there, first of all, and to notice it. Yet to notice perhaps what thoughts are around it, but to also recognize that that experience, those thoughts, those feelings, those churning emotions, whatever it is, do not belong to the expanded self, do not belong to the one consciousness. When we move our attention out, when we expand beyond the body, the limitation of the body-mind, we notice that those emotions, those feelings, those thoughts belong to the limited self. And they're arising due to the patterns of that limited self. Now, by saying that, I don't mean to belittle them, because they can still be incredibly powerful, and they can still, when we buy into them, when we feed them, when we listen to them and we follow them, when we believe them in that way, they can be incredibly uncomfortable, painful. Sometimes they can bring up grief, and we can be dragged down by that. It's important for us to remember that they're simply patterns arising. And if we can stay as the expanded consciousness self, see those patterns for what they are, patterns born of past trauma, perhaps, but they are not who we are. The thoughts arising, if we identify them, we will be pulled down the rabbit hole. They are not who we are. The emotions ignited from those thoughts are not who we are. It's a movement of energy. And it's important that they're not denied, but it's important also that we don't need to add fuel to those fires, but to put them in perspective and remember who we truly are can be a powerful thing to do. It takes quite a bit of willpower, because initially, as we grow up and get older, we're almost taught, aren't we, to follow those feelings, to jump on every thought on the thought train, to wallow in our emotions, to identify wholly with them. But they are not who we are. And it's such a powerful reminder that we can keep noticing, here comes that feeling again, that thought again, that's trying to pull me in again. I can see now that's not the truth. So yes, Sarah, very good. Did you want to add anything to that, Sarah?
No, it was just that, and thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to share? And if you've got a particular monster that's arising at this time, or a particular pattern, then it's also important that we don't feel that there's any sense of judgment here or failure here. We've all got patterns. We're made of patterns. This body mind is developed from patterns ever since we were, conceived. So, and perhaps beyond. So there's no shame in going. We've all been down the rabbit hole, haven't we? We've all fallen for it, haven't we? At different times. So let me just clarify there that there's no judgment here. But it's just a wonderful thing that we can do now once we've awakened, and everyone in this room has had an awakening experience where they've experienced themselves as everything and nothing at the same time. They've felt the freedom. You've felt the freedom of that. You've felt the expansion of that. Yet we are by default drawn back into this vehicle of the body mind, which we've been trained to believe is who we are. Girish, you have your hand up again. I'll just unmute you. Go ahead, Girish.
When we remain connected with the present moment, so right now, what we've got is World Health Organization and the government powers to be are basically defining how we need to behave. And what I'm also aware of is that there's possibilities here that there's crucial information about this virus and our behavior that are possibly being subdued by the powers to be. So, we have here, everyone's been told to stay at home and isolate. And what I experienced before my isolation was how people were reacting out there. People were reacting from a fear of lack and panic buying, and sort of, instead of nicely asking people to step back and keep the distance, the reactions were, hey, stay away from me, you know, don't you realize? You know, there's all sorts of aggression that's happening. And what I'm really asking is, so in this present moment, if some important information from scientists who also know what's going on here, and we're not being told that, do we just still stay with whatever we've been told on the media?
I can't speak for science. I'm a philosopher. However, all of we haven't experienced that in Australia, I have to say, although there's a distinct lack of toilet paper in every supermarket, which is a little bit of a local joke here in Australia. However, like Terry and I went out today and we went shopping. We had to get, you know, we've sort of decided that once a fortnight we'll go out and we'll get our groceries. And then we went for a forest walk, and we passed a few families, not very many, but, you know, there was only, I don't know, about 6 people we saw on the walk, but everyone was just so lovely and so friendly. And all the supermarkets here have like tape on the floor so that you're the right amount of distance apart. Everyone that we've come across so far has been very friendly, very cooperative, very kind. Maybe it's the community we live in, but that's been our experience of that. So it's not like that everywhere. In fact, a lot of people are saying how cooperative people have been. For me, I'm thinking, yay, self-isolation. Gosh, I mean, I am lucky. We are in paradise here. We live on a beautiful piece of land, and I've been planting vegetables and walking in the forest and, you know, looking after the chickens and setting up the online work. And for me, it's actually been quite a joyous time. And staying in the moment with all of that. You know, if I'm completely just picking this glass of water up, okay, I notice there's a little dryness in the throat here. So I've picked this glass of water up, I'm taking it to my lips. I'm smelling the aroma of the essential oil that's in it. It's really delicious. And I'm putting it down, and at the same time, I'm aware of everyone on the Satsang. I'm listening 100% to every word every one of you is sharing. And there is nothing else. There's nowhere else to be. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. There's no space here because I'm completely absorbed in the moment, and this is the experience of the moment. It's just that sometimes the mind can come in and go, this isn't enough. And then it goes off on what ifs. So again, that's another what if. And what if, okay, but this is enough at the moment anyway. It's actually a really pleasant experience to be self-isolating for a while. And if we wanted to go into what ifs, the what if that my mind tends to wander to is, I've noticed, and this is a real thing, that more and more people are awakening on the planet, are waking up. More and more people are dissatisfied with the status quo, with our legal systems, with our financial systems. More and more people are wanting a new paradigm, a new way of living to evolve. Now, if anything is ever going to change in a global way, first it has to break down. There has to be a breaking down of the old. So perhaps there's a breaking down of the old happening. Now, the only role that this body-mind can do to absolutely give as much toward that as possible is happening here. I notice that we've decided to sing mantras on FaceTime every morning, sending out positivity across the planet, I notice that we've decided to give and offer this free satsang to anyone who wants to join on a Sunday. I notice that there's a shift to now offering our yoga and meditation and music online for people to join. These are all very positive offerings. I notice that that's what's happening here. And if each of us are adding positivity in each moment and holding that expanded view of a positive world, then particularly those of us who have awakened, we may not be awake in each moment, but we have had that experience, then hold that. Hold that. Let us just let go of what may happen. Hold that and keep adding to the light of that. I'm not sure if I've answered your question, Girish, and I'm not quite sure what your question was, but it was around that. And I just think we have to be very, very careful. Okay, the World Health Organization, on some level, perhaps this virus isn't that bad. A lot of young people and healthy people are fine. It seems to be, attacking the vulnerable people. But all that is the story that's happening. What we're doing here is holding ourselves connected to the expanded consciousness. That's the work. That's the work we're doing. Does that make sense, Girish?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's really helped, actually, Soraya. Thank you very much. It's yeah, I kind of feel a significant shift in myself from what you've just said. So that's really helped. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Okay, anyone else like to share? Please don't be shy. This is our time to get some clarity, to share with each other, to help each other. We're holding hands here. This is an important time. Obviously, yes, things are breaking down. The old paradigm seems to be breaking down on the planet. So let's keep the force strong. let's really remember there's no limitation. Anything is possible. So let's live with I don't know and stay in touch with that unlimited self, that unlimited one self, which we all are. And you're all my teachers here. We're all here as one to hold each other up. Calliope, do you want to talk? Be brave. No? No, are you sure?
For me, I had during the last week a certain pattern, and I'm coming out of it now. And it helped very much to be here. And I thank all of you for sharing, because everything that has been said was, I don't know now the word, was helpful.
Great, perfect. Thank you. We've got a few more, 10 or 15 more minutes left. So would anyone else like to share something? Ish. Okay, Ish, I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
Hi. Looks like I've found out how to raise my hand, which is
Yay!
really big discovery for me. Yeah, my thoughts on the matters of everything that goes on is our purpose just doesn't change. Whether I don't know if there's war going on, or whether peace even, or we're hungry or full of food. Our purpose in life remains the same, doesn't it? It's that discover our true self, what we really are, being that, and expand that light to others, whatever situation, in good times and bad. So I don't think anything changes of our mindset. We want to heal people. We want to bring knowledge, teach yoga, everything. But behind all that, the true purpose doesn't seem to change. Our state of being we want to be in, that we experience sometimes and other times last longer. We want to be in that state and hopefully create that pathway for others. So, basically, I just want to say that no matter what happens around us, health-wise, otherwise, our centering and our purpose in life just seem to remain constant. And it's quite a reassuring thought that there's something that's really powerful with us, which we can, the energy that we can share or not share, but help other people to get onto it as well, really. So our purpose is something that if we forget that's when I think we start getting lost in stories. Those stories we have to be part of, but they can be pleasant or unpleasant experience depending on how our centering is, I think. So just wanted to share that little thought that came to me during the discussion.
Absolutely, Ish. That is truth. That is truth. Our true aim, once we have had the experience of being awake, our aim is always to remain awake. Because as soon as we lose that, we move back into a story of me. A story of me, the separate individual self, a story of me with my beliefs, me with my thoughts, me with my emotions, me with my patterns. And as soon as we bring that incredible expanded consciousness back down into this and try and squeeze it all into this limited body and mind, there will be suffering. And everything then, if once we're here and we're condensed, everything then is usually a projection into the future, or a story of future, or a story of past, igniting and reinforcing itself, those, our beliefs, everything, to be able to stand on the precipice with our arms open and go, I don't know, and that's okay, is such a powerful place to be. Some of you might know the tarot card, and that there's a couple of symbols in the tarot of the hung man and standing on the edge of the cliff. I just see those images in my mind, and that free fall. Can we just let go and really be with what is, but be with what is in the expanded experience, rather than condensing it back and trying to squeeze it all into a body-mind, because the body-mind by default wants to control its world. Always, and that will always be creeping in. And we can, once we have that bird's eye view, we can begin to notice that. We can even laugh at it. We can call ourselves out on it, And it's wonderful if you have, a group like this. Terry and I do it for each other. One of us will get stuck somewhere, down that little rabbit hole, are you? We'll help pull each other out. We'll laugh about it. As long as you don't go too far down the rabbit hole, and then you'll want to defend it. And then there's a little bit of, a little agitation can happen. But if we can do that playfully with each other, no judgment, we've all been there. We've all fallen for the mind. We've all indulged in our emotions at some stage. We've all fallen for some sort of conspiracy, haven't we? At some time or another in our life. But particularly now at this time when, you know, the veil is thin, I could say, stay expanded. Keep reminding ourselves. And I see Paul has his hand up. Paul, I'm going to unmute you. I'd love to hear from you.
Hi.
Hi. Aussie mate.
Hi, mate. Yeah, it's really peaceful around here because it's slowed down and it's not traffic, the bits of traffic we get. And I can hear we've got a sprinkling of young families around here, and the parents are spending their time playing with them, which is pretty rare. And this was reminded to me by somebody else on the internet that it's really providing a time for people to reconnect with their children and spend peaceful time at home. And there's even the thought that as they are no longer busy, they may start to connect with themselves, and we may find that some awakening occurring with people having time to stop and think. I hopped on the push bike this afternoon to get out and a bit to get some exercise, and I'm around the bike tracks and that, and the number of families that were out walking was just wonderful. And in some of the parks and that, there was sort of teenagers and that were inventing games that were non-contact, and it's like, it just reminded me of way back before television when I was quite young, of people engaging again and peacefully and not doing all the busyness. And it's sort of like just a little exciting little thing that I saw and was reminded to me by someone on the internet that this could be an incredible time for some real connection and growth in families and people's awareness. So I felt really, really encouraged by the end of today. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. That was lovely. And I have to say, it could go either way. We've had, there's one rental property in our street, and the other night we were hearing the opposite. Obviously, things were getting a little intense in that household, and there was some emotion being expressed rather loudly. So that can also happen as well. And I think it's something we can be aware of, that, you know, something I used to say was, if you take a lemon and you stick a knife in a lemon, you're going to get lemon juice, and it's going to be bitter. And if you poke someone hard enough, you'll get whatever juice is there. It's at times like these when we do get tested, yeah? So notice what juice squeezes out of you in the next week, and not to judge that, but just to go, okay, perhaps I've got a little lemon juice to deal with too. And to keep it light, because it's all okay. It's all okay. And you know what? Even if, you know, a meteorite hits the earth tomorrow, it's all okay. I don't know. We just get to a point where we're just watching the great unfolding, the mystery, and again, standing as a witness to that mystery is a powerful thing to do. When you decide that anything's okay, even if it's incredibly uncomfortable. So it's come to that time again, and I'm going to pass over to Terry because he finishes things so beautifully. He's been sitting there listening to the satsang. So
one of the most powerful words, and it's the one word which gets the worst press, unfortunately, is ego, which means I am. And if we don't add anything to that I am, in other words, the whole process of identification is when we add something on to I am. But if you just sit with that I am, this is such a powerful place to be, because it stops, because thought wants to go into I am something, I am thinking, I am talking, I am this, but actually sitting back from all that is the I am, which is the very thing that, the only thing that can be awake in this present moment. So take away the I am, and what do we have? Without the ego, without the I am, we have no place in this world. And the bad press part of it comes in when we start to identify with something that this I am, which is the one thing that contains everything, it starts to claim all the things that's being contained within it. So if it's something that I often sit with, just the I am, rather than and watch how the I am wants to take possession of something. Because this whole process of thinking is just passing through. It's just something which is just passing through. And as soon as we claim it and say, I am, we can get instantly identified in a flash. And like I was saying last week, I think that there's no distance between not being identified and being identified. There's no distance between those two, because there's either time or there's the present moment, and the present moment is out of time. The I am is not in time. As soon as the I am something, this is what creates the sequence of events, which is time, which we call time. So ego is not such a bad word. It's a great word, so long as we don't get lost in the whole process of what the ego is. The I am something. I am. So there's just something to sit with.
it's used very loosely, the word ego, and I think that's why I often use limited to the body-mind. When we bring that identification down to the body-mind, but when we sit with the I am presence, the expanded, limitless presence, then the body-mind seems less significant. Whereas most of the time, and from our upbringing, we're taught to focus very closely on the body-mind, intensely on the body-mind, intensely on every thought that passes through, every emotion that arises, and reaction very quickly to that. But as soon as we expand out from the body-mind and we sit into the I am presence, sit more into the sense of being, then we see how limited the body-mind really is. And we see how limited any identification with an object within consciousness is. And that's where desire can lead us astray as well, because we may desire a thing, which is another object within consciousness, object within, and that's limited. as far as the I am presence goes. But we give those objects such great importance. And then again, we're led astray, where we find ourselves trapped and limited, whereas actually the I am presence is absolutely limitless. Thank you, Terry. That was beautiful. Thank you, everybody. I've decided that we'll do this weekly now, while we've got the virus and while people are in isolation. And if you know anyone else who may benefit from being here, if they're ready to hear this, and let me just say, not many people are actually ready to hear this. Thousands of people listen to Terry's music, listen to our music, do all sorts of other things. But are they ready to hear this? No, not yet, perhaps. It's actually, you know, it's a wonderful place that we can share, where we can call ourselves out on getting stuck in stories and understand that in that calling out, we're loving each other back to I am presence. You know, there's no judgment, there's no criticism, but there's a reminding each other that, you know, you are me and I am you. So all love to each and every one of you who are me. Namaste. Join me for upcoming podcasts. And please, if you found this helpful or you'd like to share a comment or perhaps your own experience, I'd love for you to leave that message down below this podcast. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I'm sure we can all help each other to hold hands, to remain awake, present, clear, and loving. Namaste.